So hi guys, you probably clicked on this video because you want to know something about how React works and why I'm the right guy to tell you about it. So I will tell you first something about me. I am a React developer. I am developer for almost 5 years. I have experience with backend, frontend, but now currently I am just focusing heavily on frontend and more specifically on React and Next. I have also experience with mentoring and I have great results from it. So I thought to myself, why not to tell it also to strangers on the internet? And even if it helped just one person, I would be happy, because just one person more is better than nothing. When I'm learning something, I think it's very important to also understand how it works under the hood. So if something breaks or some bug is created and you don't know what is happening, then if you have deep knowledge of how things work under the hood, then you can very quickly identify the problems and fix them. For this course, I'm expecting you to already be familiar with JavaScript and also to not be 100% beginner that never code in his life, because I will not explain the super basic things. Maybe it's probably better for somebody who already have some experience with coding. And if you are not that, so maybe first go to some course and first learn the basics of JavaScript and so on. But you can first try to look at it and you will see if you understand it or not. First, I will show you how code looks in JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript, and then how the same code looks in React. So let's get to it. This is the vanilla JavaScript code, and what it does, it's just counter, and you can see here is the display of the counter. You can increment or decrement. Very easy, basically few lines of code. But what is happening here? This is the HTML page, and here we have HTML tags, but here we have scripts. So if you are familiar with HTML, I will not explain it. These scripts can be in separate files. I did put it in the one file, so you can see it in one file. And here is the scripts that does the incrementing itself. The problem with this approach is, first you need to write a lot of code, because for every dynamic change you need to change it in a separate file than it is in HTML. So you first need to find that element so you can change something in it. So first we can find the counter, and this is the counter element. Then we find increment button element and then decrement button element. So you can see this is the three of them. Now we create counter variable with a 0 as the default state. And here are two functions: increment counter, which will increment this variable and then set the result of this variable to the counter element. As you can see, first we found it, and then we set the text content of that element to the number which has this variable inside it. The same goes for the decrement counter. And then we have two event listeners which listen to the click event, and first is on the increment button and second is on the decrement button, and it basically waits until we click on that button, and then it will run this function, will change the counter, and the counter will change this text field to the correct value. So this is it. This is how it works. Problem with it is that we are changing directly the DOM itself, which is really bad because it's very not efficient from performance perspective. I will get more into that after I will explain React code. So now I will explain React code and then I will compare both of them. So how to do the same code in React? As you can see, it's much shorter. And I will not dive into the syntax of React now. I will do it in different video. I want in this video just to show how it works under the hood, and you don't need to understand the syntax itself and what it does exactly. You don't need to know that to understand what is happening. So as you can see, this code is much shorter. We have some state here, and this state is basically the same as the variable, but more complex. I will explain it later. And here, what is the advantage of this code? That we can work with something like HTML. It's not HTML, but also I will explain it. We can work with these elements directly. We don't need to find them first and then change the values. We can change it directly here in this code, which is real cool. It's much easier to understand and much shorter and more organized. Because imagine this is just one file, right? But imagine if we had with this vanilla JavaScript multiple files, multiple changes on the page. It will be really big mess. As the web development progress, first this was enough because there wasn't too many dynamic elements. If you remember how pages looked before, it was really ugly. It was basically just display of some static elements and that's it. But then when the web development progressed more, there were much more things that needed to be shown dynamically changed in the browser. So more and more of this JavaScript was added until it was just too much. So then smart guys in React, it was created by Facebook, so Facebook said to themselves, if we are changing basically everything with JavaScript, do we need this HTML? I am simplifying it a lot, you know, right? It's much more complex than that, but in this example I just want to show you overview, and if you want to understand it more deeply, then you can just Google it by yourselves. So guys in React said to themselves, why we don't just flip it, that everything will be JavaScript and that's it basically, because in React we don't have HTML. This is not HTML, this is also JavaScript. How it looks under the hood, it's just interpretation, oh, I can't say that word, but it's not real HTML tag. Under the hood it looks like this. It's also JavaScript object with all properties, all children's, and what React does is it takes all of these tags and it combines it to big JavaScript object, which is tree of every node in your React app. And then the cool thing what it does, and that's really big advantages of React in comparison with vanilla JavaScript, it creates this DOM virtually, and it's called VirtualDOM. And what it does is do all the changes in this VirtualDOM and then compare it with real DOM and change only the things that are different in this VirtualDOM with comparison with this real DOM. And that's really cool because it helps performance a lot. And if you don't change everything always, then it helps with it's much less reflow and repaint for the browser. What the reflow and repaint is the way how browser show elements is that it also creates this tree of HTML tags, and if something change, it needs to recalculate position of it and then display it for the user. And it's very expensive for the browser to do it. And the React, what it does, it's helping to minimize it by changing only the necessary things. If you change something in React, it first starts with comparing everything, every node with the real DOM. This does a special algorithm called React Fiber. You can also Google it yourself if you want to know more about it. And what it does is it compares everything asynchronously. So it starts on the top, but then it compares everything asynchronously until everything is compared, and then render just the things that are different. And this is very performant. Now you know more why it looks like this. So now you can much better understand how I will explain the syntax itself and what's happening. Because now if you think about React, you are not thinking about HTML and real DOM changes and things like that. You are thinking about VirtualDOM, JavaScript objects, and everything happening in JavaScript, and everything very performant. And if you know this from the beginning, then it's much easier to understand that if something re-renders and it's re-rendering often and nothing changed, it's not as bad as it looks. Like, it's bad if it's happening too much and for the root in the tree and everything underneath is re-rendered, but if it's happening just in some small component, not as often, it's alright. It would be 100% on the right if the comparing algorithm would be very efficient, but why is it not 100% alright to re-render unlimited times? Is just because of this comparison that it needs to do with every re-render. You will understand it later when I will explain it, but keep in mind that it works like that. This was the main focus on this video. I will explain it in more detail in the next videos. One more thing that I forgot to mention, what React is, it's not framework. It doesn't do everything for you. To show it, you need to have renderer, and that's why you can have React in browser and React in mobile app as well, because you have different renderer. In browser, you need to install React DOM renderer to render React for browser, but you can also render these elements for mobile app with React Native renderer. That's also interesting thing to know, because not everyone knows this. Yeah, I think that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it gave you something. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask in comments. In the next video, I will explain React syntax more deeply, and we will start from beginning. And also I will explain how everything works in every step. And then we will continue. I will show you other packages. I will show you how Redux work, what are other state management libraries, what is state management libraries, what is context, what is global state, how to share state, What is next? What are advantages of next? What is server-side rendering? What is client-side rendering? I will explain everything to you, so stay tuned and be ready.